Not only do we do that, but we unleash billions of dollars in the marketplace by putting a price on carbon. Incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, there's a price on carbon today, but you're not paying it through carbon. You're paying it through hospital costs, because the largest single cause of hospitalization of children in America during the summer is air quality, asthma-induced, environmentally induced asthma. Think about that, billions. You're paying it in damages, insurance. You're paying it in fish prices, because we're losing, you know, the numbers of fish. You're paying it in all kinds of different ways. We're just not paying it through the price of carbon itself. If we put a price on carbon, which is what we do, the marketplace, everybody's going to sit there and say, whoops, gas costs this, or home heating oil costs this, or electricity costs this, whatever. And we've tampened down those costs because we give a refund to the American people. Whatever comes in terms of revenue through the system we have goes right back to the American consumer to reduce any potential cost increase. So it's the only way you're going to reduce costs. But what we do is send a message to the marketplace, and then all of a sudden investors say, okay, we want to be the people who create the next Google in fuel, or the next Google in more efficient vehicles, or whatever. And I guarantee you that if we get into this marketplace, America can and will win, because we're the best entrepreneurs, best creators, you know, best sort of taking science from laboratory to shelf if we want to. The problem is we haven't. So just one comment. China, we invented solar technology for translating solar into electricity, et cetera. We invented wind technology to go into that. But guess what? We're not developing it. Not one company in the United States is in the top 10 solar producers of the world, and China, which only 2 years ago was producing 5% of the world's solar panels, is producing 60% today. That's what's at risk here, and that's why it's a national security risk, because if we don't strengthen our economy and stay strong on a global marketplace, we are not going to be able to protect our interests on a global basis.
Senator Kerry, it was interesting in the previous panel I mentioned to the panelists and to the audience that I was recently out at the National Renewable Energy Labs wandering around and saw this gigantic, wonderful, impressive windmill, and I was talking to the chief engineer about it, and I asked him where it was made, and he said Brazil, and I was dumbstruck. I said, why is this made in Brazil? Why isn't this made here? He was optimistic and hopeful that it would be, but this is a technology. These are technologies that we should own. And we should be reinventing ourselves at the front end and the new wave of the next level of technology in a sector that the world is going to need as it grows. Let's go to the audience for a question or two if we've got a couple minutes of your time and before your colleague Senator Merkley arrives. Is there a question here? Let's come right to the front row, sir. And if I can ask you to be brief with it, we can get a response and try to get a couple others in. Go ahead, why don't you stand and introduce yourself?
My name is Dan Martin. I'm from Indiana. I'm a disabled Hoosier vet, U.S. Navy, served in Panama and the Gulf. My question is the grid. There's this philosophy to make it bigger, but by the nature of clean energy, you can't produce gigawatts of it. So we can make it smaller and interlace it with one another. So if a bad guy comes in, he can't take out a nuclear power plant. He can't take out a big coal-fired plant. And the two things will help national security and help the economy, because we'll have to build more of these. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, well, I agree that having a decentralized kind of grid and smaller production of energy is a terrific way to go. And here's our problem. We don't have a grid in the United States of America. We have an East Coast grid, a West Coast grid, and a Texas grid. And then we have a little, Texas has its own grid. And we have a little line up there around North Dakota and so forth, comes over towards Chicago. Huge gaping hole in the middle of America. So you can't produce clean energy in Arizona or New Mexico or California and send it to the East Coast, et cetera. That's crazy. That is also crazy. I mean, Franklin Roosevelt, when he came in 1930s, decided that every home ought to have electricity. The government put $5 billion up and streamlined the process, and everybody in America got electricity. We need to do the same thing with respect in modern days to make sure electricity can move to the most cost-efficient, easiest production way, and that will enhance our security when we have a smart grid that has the ability to produce at local levels. Now, a lot of entities could produce locally, small, and our hope, I mean, solar, I know a lot of people are derisive about solar in terms of what its real capacity is, but the truth is that 100 square miles in the southwest of the United States, were it translated into solar thermal capacity, could produce the electricity needs of the entire United States 6 times over. So we have this ability. We're just not making the smart choices, and we need you to help people make them.
Senator Kerry, I'm told that we have to let you get back to work, but before we do,
This is work. What are you talking about? No, this is fun.
This is fun work.
Thank you.
Before you go, I'd like you to provide some guidance, if you could, to this crowd in terms of what you're working on today and through next week, presumably on this legislation. There are some who say that in the end, what you will produce will be very much stripped down, that the only realistic energy bill that will come out will be energy only without a cap and probably just dealing with drilling and renewable energy.
Well, first
So
of
the
all, that
apple pie.
decision has not been made yet. Let me make that clear. We have a caucus today with the whole caucus weighing in. Harry Reid will make a decision on what he thinks we get done. But here's the problem, folks. Healthcare took us all the way up until whenever it was, May, et cetera. We are down to 2 weeks before we break for the August recess. We have 3 months to go before an election. We come back and we have 3 weeks in September. I don't think any comprehensive energy bill has ever been passed off the floor of the Senate in less than about 3 weeks. And the fact is, this is a very complicated bill because it requires a lot of different moving parts. I'm very realistic about this. Nobody's been more passionate about it and pushing it harder than I am. But this is not going to die. Absolutely rest assured. It's not dying, it's not going away. Because the EPA is poised to act in January, and we're going to try our best to find a way to do it in the next weeks. If we can't do it in the next weeks, we'll do something that we think is the most responsible thing to do in the short term. But this will stay out there. We will be working on it. We will be asking you to talk to your senators and move them to understand why we have to get this done. But I can tell you, as long as I'm in the Senate, I got another 4 years on this term, we are going to keep pounding away on this. This is going to remain a central issue because it is central to our economic, to our health, to our security. It's central to major concerns for the country. So help us keep doing it. Don't be deterred if we only do a chunk first in 1 week and then we're going to do more. We're going to do this, but we're going to have to find the 60 votes to get it done, and we're counting on you to find those 60 votes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ron. Keep it up.
Why don't you take a seat, folks? We're going to move on to our next panel. But before we do, guys, just one quick question, General, for you, because I want to be responsive to the questions that have come in. We have to move on, so if you keep it brief. This is from George Charles from Nelson Island, Alaska. And John, if you have something to add on this, please do, just as I say, if you could be brief. What's the military currently doing to help reduce its oil consumption? How will the military power its vehicles and planes in a reduced oil environment? Really, really interesting, important question.
Yeah, I would tell you each of the services under the guidance of DOD are stepping out smartly in this. Very ambitious goals, very doable goals. The Air Force alone, every time we see the price of oil go up by $10, that's a $600 million bill that we have to eat. That takes away from the training that we need to be doing. So we have an aggressive program to do renewable energy at our installations. We have a very aggressive program to, in the next 5 or 10 years, to be able to get to 50% of the fuels we use in our aircraft to be of an alternative nature. And we're slowly doing that as the other services are doing also. So we're not waiting for legislation. We're stepping out smartly because we see the problems that we have when we are dependent on energy.